Is ADHD a real medical condition or a masterful creation of Big Pharma to sell more drugs? With billions of dollars at stake, countless prescriptions being written, and a sea of controversy surrounding the issue, it's a question that's ignited endless debate on social media, parent-teacher conferences, and in medical offices worldwide. You've heard the arguments, you've seen the headlines, you've listened to the endless podcasts and read the Facebook posts. But today, we're digging into part 3 of a 4-part series on busting the myth that ADHD isn't real, with a journey through history and lots of money. And who am I to walk you through this? My name is Dr. sulmanazizmirzamd. I am a triple board certified psychiatrist in adult psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, and addiction medicine, and I'm still waiting for my Big Pharma check that everyone says I'm getting. Before we look ahead, let's hit 88 miles per hour and go back in time.
Right.
Do you know that the concept of ADHD has actually been around for centuries? It has. The idea that mirrors what we now understand as ADHD isn't something new or concocted overnight. We find traces of ADHD-like symptoms in the early medical literature dating back to the late 18th century, way before Big Pharma was even a thing. In the year 1798, a Scottish physician named Sir Alexander Crichton published an encyclopedic work on mental health and described symptoms strikingly similar to what we now know as ADHD. Crichton talks about morbid sensibility of the nerves causing attention disturbances. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Fast forward to the early 1900s, a British pediatrician, Sir George Still, gave a series of lectures describing a group of impulsive children with significant behavior problems caused by genetic dysfunction and not by poor childbearing, another nod to our modern understanding of ADHD. And in the mid-20th century, ADHD symptoms were recognized in the medical community but were attributed to something called minimal brain dysfunction. It wasn't until the 60s and the 70s when we started to see the term hyperkinetic disorder of childhood, which is the early ancestor of what we would now refer to as ADHD. And the man who has been called the Oppenheimer of ADHD was just about to make his mark. Let's move forward in our journey and meet the so-called father of ADHD, Dr. Keith Conners. Now, if you're new to the name, Conners was a significant contributor to the development and understanding of ADHD, and his story might surprise you. Dr. Conners, a psychologist, developed one of the first standardized rating scales for ADHD, the Conners Comprehensive Behavior Rating Scale. This 39-item questionnaire, later shortened to 10 questions, revolutionized the way ADHD was diagnosed and has been widely adopted by clinicians worldwide. And here's where things get interesting. Dr. Conners' work, initially intended to help identify children struggling with ADHD, attracted significant interest from pharmaceutical companies. His rating scale became a crucial tool to demonstrate the efficacy of ADHD medications in clinical trials. But as the scale became more widespread, so did the ADHD diagnoses. Alan Schwartz, in his 2016 book, ADHD Nation, which I have in the trunk of my car, FYI, refers to Dr. Conners as ADHD's Oppenheimer. If you don't know J. Robert Oppenheimer, he was one of the lead scientists in the development of the atomic bomb, with a big Christopher Nolan movie about to drop. See what I did there? Another case of noble intentions leading to unexpected consequences. Just as the atomic bomb was created with the intention to end World War II, but also led to unprecedented destruction, Conners' scale was developed to identify and help children with ADHD, but may have inadvertently played a role in the perceived overdiagnosis of ADHD, which Conners himself said before his death in 2017 was not an epidemic, but a concoction to give out more medications. Conners had said he believes the prevalence of ADHD in children was about 5%, not the 10 to 15% of children that some have estimated as being prescribed ADHD medication. Let's remember that acknowledging the complexities of history doesn't negate the reality of ADHD as a neurodevelopmental disorder. We discussed the neurobiological differences in ADHD in part 1 of the series, as well as how ADHD is not actually overdiagnosed, but may be misdiagnosed and or underdiagnosed in part 2 of the series. So make sure to check those ones out as well. Now, let's pivot back to Big Pharma. So, here we are at the crux of it all, the role of the pharmaceutical companies in the treatment of ADHD. Pharmaceutical companies play an undeniable role in the treatment of ADHD, no debate from me. After all, medications like Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, Concerta, and so many others have become household names. But how do we get here? ADHD medications were developed with a clear aim to manage some of the core symptoms of ADHD and have been used for nearly a century. They're intended to be one part of a comprehensive treatment plan, including behavioral therapies, educational supports, and lifestyle modifications. Remember, ADHD is not a one-size-fits-all condition, and neither is its treatment. But here's where things get, well, a bit controversial. Pharmaceutical companies, like any business, need to market their products and make their billions of dollars. And they've done so, often aggressively. Commercials showing children's grades improving with medication, direct-to-consumer advertising, educational material distributed to doctors, these are all strategies employed to potentially increase the use of ADHD medication. And while it's not inherently wrong for a company to promote its products, the question of ethical boundaries arises and has not gone without notice, as every one of the big ADHD medication manufacturers has been publicly reprimanded by the FDA for their less than ideal advertising practices. Are these marketing tactics contributing to a broader perception of ADHD as a problem to be fixed with a medication alone? Are they promoting over-reliance on pharmaceutical intervention and overshadowing the importance of comprehensive, multimodal treatment plans? For that, let's take a look at what actually happens when people take ADHD medications. You might be thinking, well, all this information about Big Pharma and marketing practices is interesting, but what does the actual medication do? Does it work? Is it safe? ADHD medication, when used appropriately, has shown significant benefits in managing core symptoms of the disorder. I would go so far as to say that the stimulant medications are the most effective treatment we have in the world of psychiatry, with up to 90% of patients having a positive response. I would not get much pushback from my colleagues. It can improve focus, reduce impulsivity, and help individuals manage their daily tasks more efficiently. And the landmark MTA study showed that medication, when carefully monitored, had robust effects on symptom reduction. Well, you're not familiar with this groundbreaking study? Let's take a quick detour to talk about the multimodal treatment study of children with ADHD, commonly known as the MTA study, which is one of the most extensive and influential studies ever conducted on ADHD treatment. Initiated in the 90s, it involved over 600 children aged 7 to 9 years old who were diagnosed with ADHD. The children were randomly assigned to one of 4 treatment groups: medication management alone, behavioral treatment alone, a combination of the two, or the community care group where treatment was overseen by the child's regular healthcare provider. And for all the conspiracy theorists out there, the MTA study was funded by the NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health, part of the National Institutes of Health, a governmental organization in the United States. This large-scale study was a collaborative effort between leading researchers in the field and was not funded by any pharmaceutical companies. So what did this landmark study reveal? After 14 months, all groups showed improvement, but the group receiving medication management alone and the combined treatment group showed statistically significant reduction in ADHD symptoms, with that common denominator being the presence of the medication. This effect held strong especially for core ADHD symptoms such as inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. But that's not the whole story. Pharmaceutical companies use these results to reinforce the efficacy of their medications in managing ADHD symptoms. They emphasized that medication was the most effective treatment strategy as indicated by the study, sometimes without discussing the nuances or the limitations of the study. Remember when I said that wasn't the whole story? Well, follow-up studies some years later show the benefits of medication over behavior treatment alone seem to decrease, highlighting that medication isn't a standalone solution, but a part of a comprehensive treatment approach, along with behavioral therapies, educational supports, and lifestyle modifications. Dr. Connors himself would change his story over time, emphasizing more the impact of the behavioral therapies along with the medication, instead of the initial takeaway that the medication itself was the greatest predictor of success. By pushing an incomplete narrative, these companies increased demand for their products, which led to increased sales of ADHD medications. This has been a point of contention and controversy, fueling the notion that ADHD is a construct of Big Pharma to sell more drugs. However, while it's true that pharmaceutical companies have a financial interest in promoting their products, we have to remember that medication can and does play a life-saving role in managing ADHD for many individuals. But ideally, it's just one part of a person's treatment plan. At the end of the day, the decision to diagnose ADHD and how to treat it comes down to the people involved, the healthcare provider, the patient, and their family or loved ones. We know that Big Pharma has absolutely played a role in what some people are calling a stimulant epidemic, but we also know that Big Pharma did not create ADHD, and that stimulant medications are the gold standard of treatment for ADHD. In an ideal world, which we know does not always happen, there should be a discussion of the risks and benefits of treatment, and the decision to start medication should always be an informed and voluntary one, with regular follow-ups and open communication with the ability to adjust the medication as needed, which includes stopping it if adverse effects are not tolerated or the patient just no longer desires to take it. So what are your thoughts on all of this? How do you feel about the role of pharmaceutical companies in ADHD treatment? What's been your experience or the experience of someone you know with ADHD medication? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found value in this video, make sure to hit that like button, share it with others. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on the last part of our series, where I'll be talking about the idea that adult ADHD is invalid. As always, thank you for joining me, taking the time out to join me today, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.